and we have a fantastic guest on on the show today. And it. I want to test this to see how many of you really get joined in and how we can support you. Mondays, connecting with motivation. Want to share few tips, and because this is going to be a LinkedIn live show, we want to talk all about LinkedIn. Bring my amazing guest online and discuss a few things. Our topic today is going to be a twofold topic, actually a threefold. The first is going to be barriers around employment, and then how to leverage the power of LinkedIn, and to teach you and to help you grow further. So in terms of motivation, as we know, this is the COVID season, coronavirus everywhere, and many of us are feeling really low, and motivation is really on the low. And to come out of this and to help us feel more positive, to be more stronger, to be more visible, it does take a toll. I know many people. Ironically, yesterday I was having an orientation. I had 13 people who joined in for the orientation for the bridging program that we're offering. And as soon as I announced that this is something that I want to help you be comfortable in front of a camera, I lost half of them. And that makes me think, and a couple of them wrote to me later saying that they don't feel comfortable being visible. They're not feeling, they're not in the right frame of mind. And with mental health challenges being on the rise, yes, it is challenging. But if we're not going to push ourselves, nobody else is going to come and help us. So I heard this great story, which I'd like to share with you. Everybody knows our favorite chocolate, or at least most of us love Hershey's. So Hershey's is Milton Hershey's, who dropped out of school, elementary school, and had a couple of failures before he actually made a hit. During the Great Depression, he realized that his chocolate sales were really at the low. Oh, looks like I'm drowning. Fix my camera. Thank you. I will try that. Let's hope it works. But thanks for that tip. Anyways, going back to Milton Hershey, during the Great Depression, when chocolate sales were low and the threat of losing people due to unemployment was huge. His business was facing a lot of challenges. He decided to rebrand his chocolate, and he put almonds in the chocolate and changed his selling strategy to be, for a chocolate that had more protein and more calories, because at that time that was very important, and the sales went up. Giving you that example, not only was he two-time failure and an elementary school dropout, he raised his business, and whenever challenges came in, he strategized, rebranded, and grew. And this is what I want to lead with. It's time to strategize, it's time to brand, and it's time to grow. So without further ado, let me bring to you my wonderful, dynamic Dean Delpeache online to share some of his interesting challenges and how he dealt with it, and then take us into LinkedIn. All about LinkedIn, right?
Hello, thank you, Meena, and hello, everybody. So it's such a pleasure to be a part of the broadcast today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dean. So welcome, Dean. How are you doing today?
Fantastic. I had a great morning. Even though I went to sleep very, very late, and I've got a lot of things done, so I'm doing really, really well. Thank you for asking.
Fabulous. So I know that we've been on the phone this morning quite a little bit, and we wanted to talk all about LinkedIn. And I had a LinkedIn challenge, but before I get into the challenge that I faced and how we dealt with it, let's give our audience a little bit of an introduction. Who are you? How are you? What do you do? How are you dealing with work from home? So let's talk about you a little bit.
Yeah, no problem. So, I think a little bit about me from a professional standpoint is I've been in the talent and recruitment space for about the last 10 years, mainly working within the technology space. Currently, in terms of my vocation, I am employed with Fix Software. My role there is I manage recruitment and talent, as well as I partner with regards to diversity, inclusion, belonging strategy for the organization. Um, so my education is in human resources. I do have a graduate degree in HR, as well as a certificate in leadership and inclusion as well. In terms of kind of COVID, for me, prior to COVID, I did work from home quite a bit. But now I think having the barrier of not being really able to, go into the office sometimes faces a challenge just because, I like to get out and just be in a different space. And sometimes when you're not able to do that, that's a bit of a challenge. But we have adapted to, as an organization, to working from home, and it's been quite good. And I've put the technology in place to do that. So yeah, and I think many of us are facing these challenges during these times, but I'm very hopeful that things will get better soon.
Yes, me too. Me too. Um, Dean, you're big on diversity and inclusion, and you have a background um, in human resources. Tell me a little bit about what does diversity inclusion mean, and have you ever personally faced any challenges similar or
Oh
any
yeah, this is.
discrimination? I mean,
Oh, I mean, well, first of all, Meena, I think this is a fantastic question, and it really, really resonates with, I think, me as an individual. So, for example, um, diversity and inclusion. When I look at it, just to kind of give you some summary on it, diversity, I look at it, especially in the workplace, as basically bringing people with different experiences, different backgrounds, you name it, together into one organization. And inclusion plays a part in terms of now garnering all those experiences together and creating a cohesive enough team to produce strong performance. And that's the way I kind of, simply break it down. And ultimately, what that means is if you come into an organization, you should be able to be yourself. You should not have to change yourself for anyone. I don't care who you are. You don't have to change yourself for no one. You be yourself. You bring your ideas. You bring your innovation, your creativity. And when we are able to accomplish that as an organization, that will produce stronger performance. And that's what the research says. So that's kind of the diversity and inclusion a lens. And I think one of the reasons why I've become such a strong advocate for this is because I've personally experienced discrimination in the workplace setting. You look at me, I'm a Black male, and I'm not afraid to say that because that's just who I am as a person. It's a part of one of my intersectionalities and how I identify. And I remember working at this one job, and I had contacted a potential client. And when I speak to someone over the phone, I just sound like me, like a good old Canadian boy. And one day, myself and another colleague of mine who was white, we went to this prospective client's office, and he worked actually for a very big organization. Won't name the name, but when we got there, he looked at me and my colleague, and he approached my colleague and said, "Hi, Dean. Pleasure to meet you."
Oh
Right?
my God.
And
Wow.
and my colleague, his face kind of went like flesh red, right? And I started personally laughing because stuff like this. So how I take these things is I'm aware that discrimination exists. And a
Mhm.
lot of discrimination is not funny, don't get me wrong. But I think in the context of this situation, I could only smile because I think it just justified in my brain the reality of life. And I mean, to um the point of when he found realized, oh my gosh, he's not, my colleague was not Dean. I mean, the whole meeting he spent apologizing. It wasn't
Wow.
just one apology, the whole meeting. And so the reality exists that when you come from a marginalized background,
Mhm.
discrimination is there. It's just there. It's just the reality. And so this has made me an advocate to help people from marginalized backgrounds to, number one, get employed, but number two, to assist and consult with organizations to drive inclusion in organizations.
What is the difference between diversity and inclusion, team? I know we talk about it constantly, but you're an expert. So we have a lot of people that are, they're job seeking. We have new grads that are job seeking and they feel, oh my God, I have no Canadian experience or I have no relevant experience, I'm not going to get a job. Then it comes to people who are new to Canada and they're facing similar challenges. Then that comes to people who are experienced workers and they're facing different kinds of challenges. So, and then there are people who have new different kinds of disabilities and they feel that they're being discriminated because of their disabilities, and I always call them unique abilities because I feel that everybody out there has a unique capacity and a unique skill that they can offer to literally any organization. So as a diversity and inclusive expert, I'd like you to talk to the audience that are sitting in their home thinking that they're being discriminated when they're applying for a job versus, highlighting their skills. So over to you.
Yeah, 100%. So, and this probably will lead us into the next conversation. So, as I mentioned, just to re-clarify, when I look at diversity in the workplace, I'm looking at people from all walks of life. Doesn't matter who you are, right? As long as you have the skill to work in a specific job, I'm looking at people from all walks of life um, being able to apply to an opportunity, be interviewed, and as long as you have the skill, be hired, regardless of whether you have the ability, regardless of your race, your gender, your ethnicity. Doesn't matter what it is. As long as you have the skill and you're qualified, right? Then you should be able to work in a workplace. So I look at that as bringing diversity into workplaces, and then after I look at inclusion as taking that diversity and making it cohesive in order to produce stronger performing teams. And we could always break down and dive into that, but I know we only have limited time on the call. Now,
Yes.
with that though, I recognize that the main challenge to seeing this happen, to be honest with you, in my perspective, or at least one of them, is bias. It is bias. It's just what it is. So let's take this. Just similar to what you called someone who may have what we call a physical disability. I actually have one. So someone who has a physical disability, the we typically call that person someone with an ability. That's what we say, right? Just like how you
Yes.
mentioned, right? So the bias comes in that if you see someone come into your workplace who's in a wheelchair, an immediate response in your mind is that this person is unable to do the work that you're tasked to do. And so what happens then is you might interview someone, and I'll give you a quick example, but you might interview somebody, right, where or you might see a resume on paper, it looks perfect. It's exactly
Mhm.
what you want, right?
Yeah.
You get on the phone with that individual and they begin now and they say, okay, I just want to know if I'm moving forward in the process, I require an accommodation. And a lot of times bias kicks in,
Mm.
right? So I've seen accommodations from people being deaf, requiring an ASL translator. I've seen accommodations being an individual who had dyslexia and required a whiteboard to draw. I've seen so many different things. and why what I call diversity inclusion training is important for employers is because I know that these biases exist in me and in others, but I am fighting against that in order to make sure we have diverse representation. Meena, how many employers out there and how many recruiters out there don't think like that? Probably tons, right? Probably tons. There could be 40% of recruiters that don't think like that. And immediately when bias comes in, they just kind of, filter those resumes to the side. And so there is a challenge. But and I know I've been talking for a bit, but I think this is where the LinkedIn profile comes in, because I want to show people how a strategy of how you can overcome that bias.
So let's talk all about LinkedIn now.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So I think probably where I'll start with that, Meena, if it's okay, is I just want to say to everyone on the call that LinkedIn is the professional network that you need to be using in order to really showcase your personal brand. Yes, you could use Instagram. Yes, you could use Facebook. But if you want to be employed by an actual employer who's hiring, I believe LinkedIn is the monopolized, if you don't mind me using that word, channel to use. And so when I look at LinkedIn, I look at it as a personal branding tool. I don't necessarily just look at it as a networking tool, because that was the original intent of its creation, right? So for people to be able to network with each other, right, in a safe manner. But you as an audience member need to see it as I'm branding myself. So I'll give you an example. Meena, when you hear the term "just do it," what do you think about?
Of course, Nike.
You think about Nike. We all do, right? When we hear the term "just do it," the first thing we think about is Nike. If we see that check mark, the first thing we think is Nike. Nike has done an outstanding job with branding themselves with a check mark and 3 words. So that's crazy. So now you have to think about it from the perspective that people need to come to your LinkedIn profile and see your brand and have your brand stand out. And I'm telling you something, your brand will be greater than any bias that can come against you.
Yes.
So
Thank you.
I'll stop there.
Yes, and we can, we block 30 minutes and we can keep going, and
Oh
before
my
you know,
gosh.
30 minutes done, right? And that's why we have a phenomenal event that's happening tomorrow, right? Dean, you want to tell our viewers about that?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been privileged. I mean, I've known Mia now for a little while, and we've had an amazing relationship. And one of the opportunities that I've been fortunate to have is to come in and speak to Meena's students, whether it's through Destination CEO or through the courses that she teaches, on different occasions where we talk in depth about LinkedIn. And so the last time I came in to do a session, one of the things that I mentioned was I'd love to bring in a LinkedIn expert who could come in and talk about it. And so I'm really excited to announce with Meena that tomorrow we're going to have a LinkedIn expert online who's going to literally go step by step and give you all the golden nuggets that you need in order to get your LinkedIn profile to the place that you want it to be. And so his name is Halim Ibrahimi, and he will be on the call. And so he'll be on from 12 to 1 o'clock. And then after, from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock, I'm going to remain and answer any questions or go through any specifics or any topics. And there's a potential other little guest speaker that we might have on the line. We're just confirming that, but it's going to be an exciting time. And I can't more than encourage you. You got to be on the call, and don't just be on the call. You've got to invite somebody else that you think should be on that call to make sure they're on that call.
Yes, and because it's going to be a Zoom class, the link is already in the comments section. Please make sure you RSVP. Now, talking about branding and talking all about LinkedIn, yes, we're going to delve deep into it tomorrow in Dean and Halim's masterclass. But in terms of branding, and why did we talk about diversity, discrimination, motivation? This is a show that's going to bring you speakers on a weekly basis, Mondays with Meena. And I do want to give you something to think about. I do want to bring you hope. I do want to help you come out of the space that you are. And that's what Destination CEO is all about. Destination CEO has opened their classes every week, helping helping job seekers come and learn from myself, from experts. If you have questions, please make sure you put in the questions in the chat box. Of course, sometimes we get your questions after we've closed our live show. So Dean has offered to answer those questions as they come in. But Dean, you had a special offer for these guys who are watching us or who might be watching the recorded show?
Yeah, I think one of the things I really wanted to mention was I would love to connect with all of you. So every single person on this call, if you are not connected with me already, send me a note as soon as possible. And send me a connection. Say, Dean, I was on the call. I want to connect, and I want to be able to connect with you so that whether it's again tomorrow when I'm talking to you, or further or later, you might have some questions. I want to be here as a resource and an advisor for those who are part of Destination CEO to assist you. You know, I think me and Meena share this one heart goal that we know how it is to be job seekers. And we know how it is to face discrimination. And we know how it is to face barriers. And we have been so positioned in this age, in this season, to be able to assist and help anyone that needs that help. And so if we don't give back, we're not fulfilling the purpose that we're called to do. And so that's why I want to be able to offer that for you.
And this morning, I had a very interesting experience. So, I've been thinking all week about starting the show since LinkedIn Live 7 p.m. sessions were such a hit. Haha. So, this morning, when I woke up, my LinkedIn wasn't working. And it said that my account has been restricted. So panic set in because I was really excited about Mondays with Meena, to meet you all, to share information, and to bring Dean to all of you. So I panicked, and the first thing I did was reach out to Dean because, as the universe had it, the solution provider was already introduced to me before the problem occurred. And the solution provider just happened to be Dean, his contact with Halim, and then further with Katrina. And Dean was able to solve the issue. I can't thank Dean and his team from LinkedIn enough for fixing the problem so fast so that I am able to come to you and bring Dean to you. But that also got me thinking that if all of our connections are going to be based on a single platform, and if those connections are only connections on LinkedIn, how in times when you really need help are you going to move forward in case a situation like this happen? So I've been talking to everybody and asking all of you who are following me to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And that was my next thing, that if LinkedIn did not work out in time, I would send in a message through Destination CEO to everybody and say, join me on YouTube. So I'm going to recommend all of you, if you have not done it, please join Destination CEO's channel on YouTube. But, going back to how Dean and I met, I came to know about Dean, of course, from his LinkedIn post. But in order to really meet him, I traveled to Roy Thompson Hall, where Toronto Jobs was having an event. And I personally went with a group of my students, introduced myself to Dean. Dean was so phenomenal. He was so warm. And one thing, a specialization about Dean, and unfortunately, Dean, you can't do this in social distancing.
I know.
um, was Dean took the time, he was facilitating a workshop, and he took the time to shake hands with literally every single person in the audience. And I felt in my heart, I mean, I'd only gone to make a connection with Dean, but in my heart, I felt this is somebody who I want everybody to know, especially all my students and job seekers in my network, because this is someone who really cares of what he is giving, what he's promoting, what he's doing in the community. Of course, I didn't know Dean had this huge other profile where he was already involved in giving so much. And without hesitation, Dean was one of the only people who said to me, I'll come to your class at Humber, and no, I will stay for 4 hours and teach both your classes on the same day, which never really happens because I like to merge my classes so um, I don't put, you know, discomfort rather to my speakers. Um, but going back to the situation that happened this morning and how Dean had reached out to me, and we'd already, so the fact that I went there, I met Dean in person, I was able to bring him to Humber, we kept in touch. Our connection and our professional connection more went into a friendship connection where I felt comfortable reaching out to Dean and asking for his support. So, Dean, do you want to say something? I've just gone on and on about our meeting, but about how to build a genuine connection.
You know what's funny, Meena? I was thinking about this before, but I'm thinking about this even more now. I think what I'll do tomorrow for the second hour is we're
Yes.
going to talk about building connections and networking. I think I think that is what we need to do, because I realize, especially for all of the job seekers here, that's an important portion of after you built your LinkedIn profile. Okay, now what? So, so if everyone in the audience is good with it and you're good with it, Meena, like let's
Yes.
let's let's hammer that out the second hour of the call.
I'll really appreciate it. So, everybody that's watching here right now, we haven't received your questions, and I don't know if that is because of the system, but if you're watching this at a later time, your questions are not being answered, please make sure you join us. You RSVP on Eventbrite for Dean's special session, Dean and Halim's masterclass with LinkedIn, and you're going to learn about how to build your connection beyond just a connection on LinkedIn, to make it genuine, where when you need someone, they're there for you, not because you asked them for a job, but because you took the time to uh, build a relationship that went beyond just a LinkedIn connection. So thank you so much. I hope that today, Monday with Meena, was productive for you. Love to hear from you. If you are watching this now or later, want to send me a message, want to send us a message, please feel free to do so. Dean, do you have a couple of final words to wrap up the session today?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, Meena, I must say, you're doing a fantastic job reaching the community, and I'm always aware of the work that you're doing, and I want you just to encourage you to continue. The only other thing I will say is, number one, please join tomorrow's session. I really believe it's gonna be awesome, and make sure you try to invite one other person to be a part of it. Number two, please take advantage, of connecting with me on LinkedIn. I'm giving that open to you so that, whether it's tomorrow or in the future you have questions, I want to be able to be a resource for anyone.
Thank you, Dean. We'll see you tomorrow. And guess what, guys? Mondays with Meena is going to happen every Monday, 1:30 p.m. And next week, we have a very special guest again, Sam Rabar, who's going to come. He is a recruiter from the world of recruiting. Sam and I have been connected for over a decade, and he's going to come and share some of his thoughts and how he found a new job during COVID. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful start of this beautiful week.